Welcome everyone to my podcast. I have Dominic Scarberry on here with the Empowered Canine. So tell us about your story and how you got into dogs.
So my story kind of starts from a young age. My parents actually started in the sport back in like the early 80s. So they've been in for 40 plus years each.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then I was basically almost born on the trial field, if believe it or not. Yeah. I was 8 months pregnant doing a Schützen 3 on an old Rottweiler on a Sunday. And then 5 days later, that Friday, I was born.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was almost born on the field doing dog sport right up the get-go.
Yeah, you're a Schutzen baby.
Yeah, born and
So
raised.
so obviously my next question was what drew you into IGP, but obviously you were just kind of born into it. Have you ever wondered about dabbling into a suit sport, or has this just been your holy grail from the start?
This has kind of been my holy grail from the start. Like for me, and I know there's a lot of other bite sports out there that do and have great things and aspects behind them, but for me, it's like the ultimate breed test in a way. When we look at the other bite sports like PSA or Mondio or French Ring, not taking anything away from them, I think there's some astounding dogs in each discipline. IGP is the only one that includes some sort of scent work in being tracking, right?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people now are like, oh, it's just an obedience behavior. You can teach any dog to track. Well, yeah, you can. I just still think there's a genetic component behind it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I told you I did a podcast recently with Stetson Scribner, and we were kind of talking about that too.
Yeah.
And then I just did another one on American Schutzen with DJ Branch, and he was saying kind of the same thing. So, with that being said, what is your favorite phase of the three and why?
Believe it or not, tracking is my favorite out of all of
I
them.
was expecting that.
I've done a lot of like national events, being a helper and regional events and all that kind of stuff, and I get to travel and I help a lot of people doing protection work. But there's just something about the tracking phase that I could watch it all day long. And I love being able to pick up behaviors and diagnose what's going on. Maybe it's something small that's the handler's doing that causes an issue or whatever. But for me, it's tracking. Always has been, always will be. And maybe it's just because I have a proclivity for tracking, but
Yeah.
no, it's always been tracking for me.
It's funny that you say that because I feel like a lot of the very successful or people that are really competitive in the sport, I feel like that's everyone's favorite phase. So far, I've definitely never met anyone who said protection. Obedience is definitely second place, but everyone so far has told me tracking.
I think it's like a perfect harmony of like you can see raw genetic talent, but also some of the best trainers doing, honestly, at some level, again, some high level obedience training at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for anyone that might not be familiar, what do the A, B, and C phases stand for?
So A, B, and C for IGP. The A is tracking, B is obedience, C is protection. Usually that's just kind of how it's the easiest way for IGP people to be like, oh, A, 91, B, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah. Tell us about your journey with Bullet, where you started and how you got to where you are now.
Oh God. So originally a guy by the name of Tom Heelsman down in Cincinnati bought Bola out of Germany.
I'm sorry, I mispronounced
He,
his name. My bad.
oh, that's okay. A lot of people do. Not a big deal. I'm used to it by now. So it's actually kind of funny because he called me after he had a trial. One of our friends was the judge for the trial, and she was like, "This dog is way too much for you." He was an elderly guy, not in the best shape. She's like, "This dog is way too much for you. You have to sell him. He's gonna bite you. He's gonna do all these things. Blah 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 blah." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah. I think you're right." So he was looking to sell him anyway. He had called me originally, and then right before I was able to go look at him, Christina O'Kane got to go down and see him and was like, "Holy shit, this dog is awesome. Like, I want to take him." So she did. And then I was like, all right, well, that's kind of bad luck for me, bad timing that, right before I
Yeah.
was going to go look at him, he's gone, but it's the name of the game. So I had seen him probably about a month prior to me buying him. Christina had him at the WSV qualifier here in the US and just walking around, going for a walk and everything. And I was like, damn, that's a really good looking dog. Like, and I went up to her and I was like, oh, is this the dog that Tom had that you bought from him? And she goes, yeah, I'm just kind of testing him out, seeing how he is, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay. And then about a month goes by and Tom calls me again and says, hey, I got Bola back. Would you still be interested in buying him? And I was like, I don't know. Like, why did Christina give it back? I don't know. So I called her, and she just found out that she was pregnant with Nolan, her
Mhm.
second child. Said there was, some training things and whatever about the dog. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll take a risk on him, like, whatever. So my dad was going down to practice at the field because our regionals were being held down there. So I told him, I was like, hey, just check out this dog. Let me know what you think. Like, if it's bad, it's bad. Like, we'll pass on it. But if he's good, like, let me know. And my dad goes and tests him, does all that stuff, calls me and goes, yeah, this dog is phenomenal. Like, I'm going to come home with him. And I was like, okay, cool. Awesome. And then my dad and I worked out a deal. He ended up buying him for me. We worked out a deal where he can use him all he wants for breeding, which it's my parents. Why would I charge my parents for a stud fee or anyway?
Yeah.
So that was the deal. And I've had him since, God, let me think now, like end of July, beginning of August of 2019 till now, and just kind of plugged away at all the little things that we need for competition, right? I'm very much a type of person where I need that like immediate connection with a dog. I
Yeah.
can't build it or fake it over time.
Yeah.
So as soon as he got out of the car, I looked at him. I was like, "Yeah, no, that's the dog.
That's it.
That's it's done. He's not going anywhere. Like you're done. This is your home forever. You're with me forever. Sorry about your luck."
I love that. That's such
Yeah.
a sweet story. And you're so lucky that you're able to, barter with your parents on buying you a dog just because they're so deep into into the dog world. He's a very well-known dog. Your guys' accomplishments as a team are really awesome. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's kind of funny. I always tell this to people. The first time that I really believed and truly believed that I can compete with Bola like at a high level was after we won the regionals in 2022 out in British Columbia. A couple of the competitors are longtime like IGP enthusiasts, same kind of thing, been in the sport 40 years. I think the most well-known person in Canada is Lance Collins,
Hmm.
and he had his female that he was competing with at the time and a young male. The female he was the year prior was previously on the world team with, and Bola and I won the whole regional with Lance and his female coming in third, and funny enough, Cassandra and Asia coming in second.
Yep, I remember
Um,
that.
so it was pretty much at that point where I was like, okay, like we have a shot. We can kind of compete with the best of them. That was kind of my bar going in was see how I compete against Lance because he's been in the sport for a long time. I think he's if we talk about like the goats, quote unquote, in Canada, I think he's probably the guy. Um,
Yeah.
I think he has something like 20 plus world teams that he's made over the
Oh my gosh.
years. His highest place, I think he was like third or fourth at the WSD. Yeah, like he's arguably the GOAT. So that was kind of my gauge and my bar of like, okay, if I can compete with Lance, then I think I have a pretty good shot of being
Yeah.
competitive on an international stage even.
So how was that? What was it like preparing for that? Were you nervous?
That was the first time I was really, really nervous because it was our second time competing off the home field. The
Oh my
first
gosh.
time Yeah, the first time didn't go so well. I got DQ'd on the very last out in my two.
Oh my gosh.
I had 98 in my track and then 85 in obedience with two blown motion exercises, so minus 10. And then the judge, who's a friend of mine, after the last out, he's like, if it makes you feel any better, I had you at 100 going into that. I'm like, it doesn't make me feel any better whatsoever.
Better.
I'm like, if anything, that makes me feel completely worse. But I know what you're trying to do. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but yeah, I got DQ'd on the very last out, so that was a real kick in the ass about
Yeah.
it. So going into that regional, I was stressing because the last time we were off the home field, I was like DQ'd, like I don't know how this is gonna go. We're competing like at a three. There's so many factors. Like I drove 10 hours from Calgary to Vancouver to do this trial just to have a shot because I was going to support our other club members competing at our regionals the following weekend.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I want all my time that weekend to be devoted to them and to like making sure they're taken care of and good. So Cassandra and I drove out there. I think we were out that Monday before, and the event started Friday, like with a draw and practice and all that kind of stuff. So it's a big change going from Calgary down to Vancouver because we're like, I think we're I want to say like 3,000 or 4,000 feet above sea level. So just like Denver, where air is very thin and everything's a bit different. It's more dry. Then going into Vancouver, it's basically sea level and having to deal with humidity and all of that kind of stuff. I'm like, this is going to be like, I want my dog to get acclimated. This is going to be completely different, something he's not been used to since I left Ohio. Like, I just want him to acclimate to this kind of stuff. And the first couple of days we were there, we got, like Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, he was a complete nut job, like bouncing off the walls. Like, I looked at Cassandra the one day, I was like, I can't control him right now. Like, he's being a wild man. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then Thursday, he kind of calmed down and chilled a little bit. And then Friday, he was kind of in between the two. And then Saturday, we competed, and he was exactly where I needed him to be. So,
Looks like
all
you
good
got your
things.
timing down.
Yeah, I got lucky with that for sure.
So, what were your feelings after the fact? How amazing was that?
It was a good feeling. It was one of those where I was like, okay, we can compete. It's definitely a good like marker to see where we're going to be for the nationals, which was about I think like 6, 7 weeks after. So I was
Hmm.
like, okay, it's a good gauge of where training's at, where we're at with everything. It'll be a good thing to see what I need to improve and go from there. There's a couple things like in the protection, he had a couple dirty outs, and all in 2022. I don't know what I did in the training, but he was just getting worse and worse with his outs. Like if anyone goes on Working Dog and wants to watch Bola's protection from the WSD in Denmark, first off, I apologize. It's horrific. I still have PTSD. Like I've only watched it one time in almost a year and a half because it's like burned into me and I get PTSD every time I think about it. But since then, going to Switzerland last year and having a pretty good showing, it's definitely been rewarding in that way.
Yeah,
And being able to kind of get some of that confidence back.
yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to go check this video out now. I want to see what
Oh
you're
God,
talking about.
I warn you, it is ugly. The greatest part of it is long bite, fantastic, always is. But everything leading up to that, you're gonna be like, you're not wrong. This dog is out of control.
So, where do you think he's the strongest in obedience, protection, or tracking?
For me, I love doing all the phases with him, but I think his strongest is tracking. He's a very genetically gifted tracking dog in that sense, which I'm very lucky because I like to have that. But he also has very high obedience behavior. Like he wants to please, he wants to be correct all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't have to fight him a lot on like speed changes after corners or into long legs or wanting to down at articles or do anything like that. As long as I have him prepped properly. Again, going back to Denmark, I got a 5 in tracking, which was a new one for me. I've only failed tracking one other time in my life, and that was certainly a eye opener because I did not prep him properly at all, and I've taken that and owned it. It's nothing that he did. It was all completely my fault for not preparing him properly for that competition.
Yeah.
Um, I think probably he scores better in protection, but I like his obedience more than I like his protection because he gives everything into every exercise. It's not just like 100%, like it's like 110% for everything. He puts so much into his healing and his recalls and the jumping, the running for the send out, like all those little things, the finishes, even at the end of a routine when he's doing his finishes, he's still fast and in proper position. He doesn't get lazy. Like for me, it's probably my second favorite phase to train with him. Um, Protection, it's hit or miss, mostly because I have to do a lot of my own helper work. I have two guys that are talented in terms of like doing trial helper work,
Hmm.
but doing training helper work, they're not kind of far along. So I have to spend more time getting them ready. So probably not with him because this year, next year are going to be my last 2 years, more than likely, as long as he's healthy. And so probably my next dog, but I'll need them in 2.5 years to get the next dog ready to go.
Yeah. That goes into one of the questions too is do you plan on getting another dog? Do you plan on getting an offspring to him?
No, I can't. I can't do one to Bola. Honestly, I get this question a lot, even just like for my friends, and it's not fair. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to that new dog to try to get something from him. As much as I love him, and a lot of the puppies that I've seen from him, I would take in a heartbeat. No, I can't because I'd constantly just be comparing it.
Yeah.
Like they'd have a little bit of maybe not the fastest obedience or so flashy, and I'm like, well, I guess you're not your dad, like, and it's not fair, right? So for me, I want to go kind of a different direction, just to one also kind of broaden my knowledge in terms of like the other genetics that are out there and doing
Mhm.
all of that. But yeah, I just can't.
Yeah,
It's not fair.
I completely understand that. A lot of people say the same thing. And when you have such a nice dog, any dog you get, related or not, even if you're actively trying not to compare, sometimes you will. I mean, it is natural. And no, it's not fair, but again, we can't always help it in the heat of them. So, what is your favorite behavior or favorite behaviors to teach? And not necessarily with Bola specifically, but just with any dog that you've done.
Honestly, I love teaching a hold and bark. Like that is some of my favorite things to do just because there's so much emotion and control and intensity in that position. I also love teaching long bites, but that's because it's the helper in me. If I had to do another thing, it's now changed within the past couple years. I would probably say doing dumbbells for teaching obedience wise, or doing send out training or down training for the send out. I'm not a huge fan of teaching healing because there's so many different styles and ways we can do healing and how to fix it and do this and do that. And same thing with emotions, but at least with the dumbbells, I kind of have a pretty good system that I learned me as Skokester. So I've kind of taken that and used it not only with my dog, but a lot of other people as well.
I think also having a specific dog will make you like teaching specific things more. And healing just takes forever. I mean, I think some dogs retain what they learned foundationally very well, and you don't have to go back too much. What are your short and long term goals for yourself as a helper, for competing with?
Short term for Bola as of right now, in about a month or so, we're leaving for France to go to the Universal again, in hopes of repeating our championship. Probably won't happen, given that I've seen some of the dogs that are now being entered and everything, but we'll give it a shot. Long term, for this year at least, I want to try to make the WSD again. It's going to be Meppen, Germany, which is like everyone's going to be trying to make this team. Like it's going to be ridiculous. I love the competition. It's just a great atmosphere and vibe and everything. Just looking further ahead, I want to do it again next year with him as well. Probably be his last trial if I make the world team next year. Be his way to go out on top. Like you're at the pinnacle, you're retired, like this is it, you're done, kind of thing. I don't really have any shorter long term goals as in terms of like helper work. I've kind of been there, done that in terms of like trial helper work. I guess in terms of like doing training helper work, I just want to see my dogs in my club and everyone that I'm consistently helping like have the success that they deserve because they put in just as much work when I'm not helping them or training with them as I do when I'm only there for 3 days. Right? Like we have a regional that my club is hosting in June, and we're gonna have like probably 5 or 6 of our club members entered in it. So all of them, like short term goal in that being, I want everyone to, get 96 plus because that's just how I am and my mindset I take into it. Long term, for this year at least, we're again going to probably have like 5, if not 6, competing at the Nationals in August in Vancouver. And I kind of want to have an Inferno sweep on the podium, which would be kind of cool. So the entire team would be nothing but Inferno. If it happens, you'll never hear the end of it, kind of thing. The funny thing is that a lot of people don't know about Inferno is that every member except for myself and one of our other members, she's a bit older, is all first time handlers as well. It's
Oh, I didn't
all
know
their
that.
first sport. Yeah. So Cass in Asia, it's her first dog in the sport. Danny and Yarrow, first time handler, first time doing the sport with her dog. Dallas, she had her Black Russian Terrier that she did a one on, and now with Crosby, she's going to be doing that kind of stuff. Like everyone who's come in and done Inferno canine training has all been pretty much first time handlers.
That's so awesome. Do you have anything to add in with your experience being a helper versus being a competitor?
Um, I always say that I'm a competitor first, right? I'm a competitor first and a helper second. Um, as much as I love doing helper work and doing competitions, and you get like the sweet Brian Agajani photos later that are posted with you doing long bite catches or front half stuff, and I've got a lot of them. Um, it's I always have a feeling, and like my heart goes out for handlers, right? Um, I never want to see someone DQ, and when people do DQ, you can actually like see it visibly on my face that like I get mad because I'm like, why the f- are you DQing? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I always try to be as fair and consistent as possible. I don't Like if you and I were in a trial and I was doing the helper work and I didn't really like you, it doesn't matter. Like I kind of put that aside. Like it's not fair to take this our beef out on the dog and the training that's there. Like it'll all come out in the wash anyway, kind
Hmm.
of in a karmic sense. So I always try to be as fair and consistent as possible, no matter who it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's super important. I think sometimes people could let their ego, kind of rule situations like that. And then all it does at the end of the day is hurt the dog. And then it just makes you look bad as a helper.
Yeah, they can pick up on it pretty easily. It's not that hard, right?
Um, so in terms of being a helper, I know you said you're a competitor first. Has it always been a dream of yours to become a national level helper, or was that just something that along the way just started to happen?
Yeah, kind of. It's always kind of been my goal. Actually, my goal is if the world's ever come back to the US, that I want to try to make it as one of the helpers for the WSV if it ever comes back to the US or even Canada. I remember the point I was doing club trials and doing stuff at my parents' club, and I was happy doing it. I had no real ambition to go higher because I was just not really content, but like, just, yeah, okay, this is fine. I'm cool doing club trials and maybe do a regional here and there, but as far as to go anywhere else, like I didn't really have much ambition to at that time in my life. And then I competed at the 2011 Nationals with my old dog. His name was Vito. This is in Kansas City. And he got jammed pretty bad on the long bite to where the helper didn't even like turn hardly at all. Like I think he turned maybe 90 degrees, if that. Like it was
Oh,
a really bad jam. Um, and it was at that point that I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a national level helper. I'm going to do the national events and I'm going to get picked for the back half so people don't ever have to worry about their dog being jammed. They know that they're going to be safe out there. And that's kind of what drove me to do it. Of course, I had to have a bad experience to have that kind of push,
yeah.
but that's ultimately what kind of pushed me over the edge to be like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work my tail off and be one of the best, if not the best helper out there.
It is scary sometimes sending your dog on people, especially if you've never seen them either do helper work or decoy work. So I do know that there's some people that they won't even trial outside of their club trials because they don't trust the decoys or the helpers. And I could totally get that. I mean, one bad catch and your dog could be paralyzed.
Yeah, it can be really bad. Unfortunately, Bola's even had a bad catch in his life. I don't know if anyone's seen his protection from the Universal from last year. That Pulper kind of had like a late sleeve presentation, and Bola didn't jump really that well. Normally, he's a pretty easy dog to catch, and he'll jump from a good distance, and he's fast and big, but he's pretty easy to catch. But because the helper had a little bit of a later sleeve presentation, he didn't jump that well. He ended up hitting the guy in the knee with his chest. The guy's knee ended up kind of blowing out. Like I think he tore his meniscus, tore his MCL, and dislocated his kneecap all at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I
so
didn't realize he got
now,
that badly injured. I remember seeing the catch, but I didn't realize that he did all of that. That sucks.
yeah, so he had one dog after Bola to do, which he powered through and did it. Kudos to him. So then the next day, Danny with Yara was doing protection like early morning. I think it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning doing protection. So I showed up solid, 30, 45 minutes before she was starting just to talk with her, do all that. It's my teammate and my friend. And I saw the alternate for the back half warming up and I was like, wait a second, like what is going on? And then I saw the guy who caught Bola on the fence and he had crutches and a knee brace on and I was like, oh my God, are you okay? Like what happened? The only thing he said to me is like, bro, I love your dog. I don't even care that I got hurt. I love the dog. Like it's whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, are you still okay? Like, can I get you anything? Like, is there anything I can do? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I just love your dog. And that was it. I was like, oh, awesome,
Well, at
cool.
least he
Thanks,
had a
man.
good attitude about it.
Yeah, like we still stay in touch every so often and just kind of go back and forth. So he's a super nice guy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Have you ever gotten hurt doing helper work like to that extent or no?
Yeah, actually, last year was my first major injury that I've had doing helper work. I was working Breeze, Melissa and Breeze, and I went to go do an escape bite. And when Melissa's dog hit me on the escape bite, my whole ankle rolled, and
Oof.
I was like, I've had it happen before, and I was like, "Ah, okay, like that hurts, but I'm just gonna like walk it off. And after about 10 minutes, it was starting to throb in pain, and I was like, okay, I don't think that I'm okay, right? Luckily, I had high top cleats on, and I was like, I don't think I'm okay. Like, I think this is really bad. And then I took my cleat off. My whole ankle was like ballooned up and swollen.
Oh my
Turns
gosh.
out I turns out I fractured my ankle doing that. I was out for about, I should have been out longer. I should have been out about 6 weeks, but I was only out about four because I had a lot of help work and a lot of people to get ready for trials.
Well, it's nice of you. I always feel bad, when we send our dogs on people and they get. Have you ever gotten bit by a dog or no?
Yeah, I've got, even in training, I've gotten it. I've never, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever had it happen in trial, but I've had it happen in training quite a bit. Like I have a scar like right here from a dog like jumping up at my face, and then I leaned back and then it got me in the chest. I have two puncture wounds like over here. So I was doing a long bite with like a half sleeve out to the side, and I had the stick in my right hand, and the dog was targeting the stick, and I didn't realize it until about 10 feet beforehand. I have one on my arm here from a dog like missing in the skate bite and then still using a half sleeve, and then they came underneath and like put a canine through my forearm. I think that's all I can think of that are bad that I've had.
So we talked about your favorite IGP phase. What is your least favorite? There's only two left, so
I would say my two is probably protection and three obedience. Protection just because I like seeing like the power and the dominance and the raw genetics coming out of dogs. You can even
yeah.
see it at like puppies. Obedience, honestly, it's just because of the precision. Like when you really break it down, like Schutzen back in the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, they'd be 70 points club trial nowadays. So to have like that same level of precision that we require, that's the thing that I'm like to work for so much on these small details. Like, why can't I just do the full picture? Like, okay, we have to work on fronts today. Now we have to work on dumbbell holds. And now, oh, wait, my dog's lagging a little bit in my build up for my sit in motion. So now I have to worry about the build up. And now I still have to train the sit. And yeah, just like that kind of level of precision of everything. I actually look forward to watching some of like the high level, like obedience competitors. Like my friend Marcos Ferre, he just won the Worlds in Hungary this past year. And he had a beautiful like 97 point obedience routine at the World Championship. Again, if anyone's on Working Dog, go check that out if you want to see some like beautiful high level obedience at that championship. It like I got to see him live in Denmark, and that was like one of the only obedience routines that I really wanted to go watch was that their performance.
Yeah. Obedience when you have a really good team, it's just so hard to beat that. I've heard people say that about tracking, like when you have a nice tracking dog, like nothing tops that, but I love obedience. That's definitely my favorite. Healing does take forever, but especially when you have, and you obviously, you have this, so you can relate. When you have a dog who loves obedience, you love to do obedience with the dog.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I have dogs who don't love obedience, so pulling them out sometimes is like feels like pulling teeth. You're just like, all right, you're cheerleading them for them to do it. You're like, all right, let's go, and you're giving like 150% energy maybe to get like 75 out of them because it's just not their favorite aspect. With one of my dogs specifically, she loves obedience, and it makes not only training so much more fun, but it makes trials actually fun. Um,
Hmm.
just because also when they have really high obedience drive, they're more reliable too, you know,
Yeah.
and flashier, and everything looks more well put together. Guess what? You gotta see what I just got. Wait,
Oh no.
she's stuck. Hold on. I literally forgot she was here.
Oh my God.
I got a chihuahua.
Oh my God. Do not show that to Cassandra because she will be bugging the hell out of me to get one.
She's a long-haired chihuahua. I'm gonna start a breeding program.
If people start seeing me and I have a name change and I'm breeding doodles, just mind your business.
So, what would you consider to be the most ideal tracking conditions?
A calm, cool, dewy morning with some like ankle deep, like clover mixed with grass terrain. Like that to me is perfection. Like it's heaven for me. Probably the next would be dirt because dirt's so easy to see. If anyone has tracked in California and tracked on some of the dirts that Joel Monroe has out in California, it's like tracking on the moon. Like those steps will be there for weeks to come if the farmers don't plow up their rows and everything.
California is actually horrible. I lived there for 2.5 years. There is no grass. So, I mean, there are parts if you go to Northern Cali or
Yeah.
if you go out into the country, but I lived in San Diego.
Yeah, I think the Nationals were there in like 2015 or 2013, I think 2013 and 2015. He had like access to like dirt fields that were next to some almond groves or some stuff like that. And my dad was doing the track laying and he's like, every day my boots are filled with like this sandy dirt. And he's like, you can see he sent me a picture, you could see every footstep for like days.
Yeah. Um, this brings me into a question I just thought about. And this is something that I've noticed a little bit, obviously just depending on the individual, but did you find that since you were born into a Schutzen family that there were times where you wanted nothing to do with it, or were you always pretty heavily involved and you really enjoyed it?
Um, bit of A, bit of B. So I always say it's a blessing and a curse on two different levels. It's a blessing because everybody knows who you are, so you can get, access to some pretty good training, um, have a lot of help and people assist you along the way. Like, uh, I've gone and trained with Mike Deal and Deb Zappia and all like the bigs in that area, like in the Mideast region, even in New York and Pittsburgh area. Uh, Downside, the curse of it is that everybody knows who you are. So there's a bit of like an expectation, and you're kind of under a microscope
Yeah.
on everything, right? Like if I would have a bad tryout doing helper work, it was, oh, yeah, see, he's not that good, blah, blah, blah. But then as soon as I would do another tryout and all of a sudden I was on that day, they would be like, oh, yeah, he's great. He's this, he's that, he's blah, 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 blah. So my dad always called it being like Charlie Brown. You're either a hero or you're a bum, and there's no in between.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure for sure. I mean, even for me, and I'm not nearly close to being as well known as you are. I mean, your parents have been in the sport for so many years, but I feel like even when I just had maybe a few thousand followers on Instagram, I felt so in the spotlight that honestly trialing started to become something where it just felt like so much pressure because I knew that people would be talking about me if I didn't pass, to where it kind of stopped being fun a little bit because I'm just like, I just wish that sometimes I could fly under the radar and just go out and trial and maybe fail, and no one knows. But, you know, there's pros and cons, I guess.
Yeah, there's always pros and cons with everything, and especially once you start having success and doing well, then all of a sudden all the haters come out of the woodwork, right? Like
Yeah.
you'll have people that you've never met, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this dog is this." It's like you've never even met the dog. You've never even seen him in person. Like I know the most recent rumor that was floating around was Bola has all this human reactivity and dog reactivity, but Dom hides it with a ball in his mouth. I'm like, no, I put a
I
ball in
didn't
his
hear
mouth.
that. I didn't hear that one.
Oh yeah, that was flying. It was mostly in Canada. It was flying around. But the reason why I do it is because it's like a soother for a baby. Like you have a newborn baby, you have a soother in his mouth at some point, right? That's basically why I do it with Bolip to like chill out, don't bug me because if he thinks I have a ball on me, he will like pillage me and like rummage through my pockets and like bite at my jacket and do all this stuff. So I just give it to him as like
Leave me
basically a
alone.
soother. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically like a soother. Just like go here, have this, go lay down, chill, relax.
Yeah, people will, at the end of the day, people always look for something to complain about. If they can't find anything, they'll just make their own shit up. I mean, it's just how it is. That's what happens when you're the recent WSV world champ,
Universal World Champ.
universal world champ. You corrected me last time I said it too. I said it wrong on my story. I don't know if you remember that.
I did. It's all right because there's two competitions for the WSV. There's the Universal, which is the tracking, obedience, protection plus a show component, and then there's the WSV World Championship, which is just tracking, obedience, protection. So I always say that Bull is the best working and looking dog that in the last year. He has both.
How do you start your puppy tracking? What is your
So I don't do like footsteps. I do kind of like one big continuous disturbance and have food in every quote unquote step along the way. Um, and immediately, like when I start, I introduce corners. So even when I have like a 10 or 12-week old puppy and I'm starting them their first tracks, I have a corner to start.
is that pretty common for people to do that or no?
I don't, the more I travel and the more I see people like starting to put young dogs and doing this kind of thing and have had other influence and help, which doesn't bother me, it's whatever. No, it's not. But I am kind of stuck in my dad's tracking system that he's developed over the last 40 plus years of doing the sport and he's had pretty good success doing it. So I kind of stick with it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. They're going to be doing corners for the rest of their life. Why not show it to them early on?
Yeah, why not introduce it right away and have them understanding that the track goes in different directions instead of just straight or in a serpentine or whatever.
What do you look for specifically in an IGP prospect, and at what age would you wash a puppy if things weren't going the way that you wanted them to?
Ooh. Usually I look for a lot of this, kind of the same thing that everyone looks for, good nerve, confident, social. I don't care so much about the food drive because it'll come up with age. I don't care so much about toy drive or anything like that because again, it'll come up with age and just through reps and like it's a lot of those things that you can build into a dog as well. But for me, the big thing is environmental nerve, sociability, biddability is a big one, which is kind of hard to look at an 8 week old puppy and be like, oh, this puppy's going to be so biddable.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible to do that. But it's something that as I've gotten older, I kind of like to see.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I kind of like them dumb, to be quite frank. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Asia. She's an incredible female, but she is way too smart. Like, it is a pain for me to like try to trick her in like coaching cast and tracking or having my dad help or doing stuff in protection because she's always anticipating and looking for like the next thing that's coming. Like she picks up on patterns too quick. Whereas with Bola, I can do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And he's so dumb, bless his heart, that he just doesn't pick up on the pattern at all. Like I do the same routine for like a sit in motion, like a cue beforehand. It took him 2.5 years of me doing the same cue for him to even start to even think of it.
But yeah, I think that's pretty funny that you said that because the dog being really, really smart can really work against you as a sport dog.
Especially in IGP because it's so routine based,
Yeah.
right? It's so regimented. It's always the same routine every single time. It's nice because they'll pick up on your cue and be like, oh, okay, about turn's coming. Oh, sit in motion's coming. Oh, I got this. But it can also backfire on you at times. Like normally by the retrieves in a 3 routine for Asia, she's already like auto finishing, which like Cass will take the dumbbell and put it at her side and the dog's already going and it's like
Okay, bye.
technically, yeah, like technically you're right, but just wait a second longer kind of thing. Whereas
Yeah.
Bola, I'll take the dumbbell and I'll sit there my 3 seconds and he's just like, okay, what now? He is the dumbest boy that I think we have in our club. We kind of have it's kind of bad to say, but in our club we kind of have like a short bus for the dogs. And Bola and Yarrow are leading the pack on that for sure.
Well, I mean, they're both pretty successful, so I think something's working.
Dumb males, they're easy. It's funny because Azula's actually kind of taking after Bola and being a bit dumb, and I love it for Cassandra because she's like, she's not Asian, blah blah blah. I'm like, exactly. You need a dumb dog. It's great. Just
Yeah.
wait till you're done with her. See how much more fun it is.
Yeah. Welcome to the. It seems like you guys are really happy with her. It seems like she's doing well.
Yeah, like we really like everything that Azula has. The only thing that we're kind of picky about, she's kind of ugly in our opinion, but also like you can never figure it out like what is gonna happen in terms of how they look when they come out, right? Like
Yeah.
Bull is I think 3 times now has been V-rated in confirmation, which is excellent. I don't think Asia has had anything but excellent ratings, and I think she's got like 5 or 6 times V in confirmation. So when we were like, oh, okay, they're both V rated, like hopefully the puppy comes out to be good looking. And then there's Azula who's like SG on a good day. And we're like, well, that didn't go exactly how we planned. But no, in terms of everything else, like she's like in my opinion, she's probably one of the nicest puppies I've been around. And my parents have bred for 40 years, 35, 40 years now. She was horrible at like 8 weeks old. She was a terror. One of the worst puppies I've been around for that aspect. But now that she's maturing and we're starting to do more and push more and get more out of her, no, she's definitely one of my favorite Bola puppies that at least I've seen and probably one of my favorite females that I've worked in a long time.
That's awesome. It's always, I mean, I say that and I haven't had a litter yet, but I can imagine the feeling that you guys get when you produce this dog. And not only that, you share the parents together and then you have her. It's just like every time you train, you're able to see different things that come from both of them in her.
It's definitely something that it's been fun to see. Um, Takes a little bit after Bola in being dumb, but also kind of tries to play Asia's game of trying to be smart at the same time. But she's definitely easily tricked for things.
What traits do you think Bola is throwing in his offspring? And then do you have any upcoming litters with him?
The good things that I've seen has been grip. Like he's been bred to a couple females that don't have the best gripping behavior. Maybe they're full, but they're kind of soft in the grip. He's improving a lot of that. I I've seen a lot of improvement in like social nerve in terms of like being able to go out in public and be either neutral or like a golden retriever, which Bola is like a golden retriever with people. Um, and then bidability. Like they're pretty easy dogs to train. They're very handler oriented. They want to do the right thing. They don't want to make the mistake. They don't want to be corrected. They want to be correct at all times, which I really like. And Bull is pretty similar that same way. The bad, I've seen a couple that are small, like smaller, like Azula's a bit small on the small side. I've seen a bit where sometimes they don't have like the best environmental nerve, but I don't know so much about the female either. Like I know his and I know how he is going places. I don't know so much about the female that I'm
Yeah.
breeding to. Of course, when, people approach about doing breeding, oh, my female's the best dog in the country. It's this, it's that. It's she's a unicorn. Like she's perfect in every single way, shape, and form. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's great. Here's what my dog offers. So take it or leave it, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, yeah, like I know Jess Morrison just bred to him. I think they're 7 or 8 weeks old now. The puppies, they're just starting to go home. If anyone's been following that litter, like they look like terrors, in my opinion. I have a couple breedings coming up that I'm kind of excited about. There's one down in Florida. Can't remember the woman's name who wants to breed to him. Can't remember the female's name off the top of my head either. Another one is Carly, Brandy Marte.
Oh,
She wants to breed Rika to Bola
oh,
again
that's right. She
since,
actually just said that. I just had her on for a podcast and we were talking about that.
yeah. So she wants to do the breeding with Bola again because last time it didn't take. I'm not sure why. Maybe timing was off. Maybe she stalled when she flew here. I don't know what the whole deal is. But yeah, she wants to repeat that breeding. Then my parents are going to use him again with one of their females, who's a daughter of how do I put this? She's a half sister to my dad's young dog that he has now. That's a Bola son. So they share the same mother. Her father is my dad's older competition dog. So he wants to breed that female to Bola and see what happens.
What are your thoughts regarding the newer rule with no stickets?
I don't like it,
I don't
to
think
be
any
honest.
I don't think anyone likes it.
I don't like it at all. Like for me, you can see I've noticed a big change. Again, been doing this for quite literally my whole life. I started doing helper work when I was 12. Even just from that time till now, so in the last almost 18 years, there's been a big shift in the dogs. I think removing of the stick hits, I think it makes it easier. But I think it opens the door for the off breeds that maybe necessarily can't take that level of pressure to be more successful, like for the Aussies or the Border Collies or Boserons or what have you. That people want to come out and their dog has potential and shows really great drive for tracking and really nice obedience, and they'll do protection. But as soon as there's something like that, they're like, I don't really want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
So I think it's a way. I think it's good in the sense that it kind of helps membership grow internationally, worldwide. I know for us, it definitely has, like at least in North America. Um, but in terms of like the high level competitions, I don't think it's good. I think doing the stick hits, you could see like true nerve of a
Mm-hmm.
dog. Sometimes you'll see dogs grip change, they'll shift, they'll get weak, they'll back out of the grip. I can't tell you how many times doing like championships and after the long bite, on the reattack, there's two stick hits. On the second one, by the time I lock up, that dog's already outing and like maybe guarding not so close or powerful, and they're like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I think now it kind of takes that fight and that pressure away. Other side, you get more people involved. Maybe they're like, oh, I have my, whatever, Aussie that wants to do this, but maybe can't take the stick pressure, but they can get through an IGP1 now. And then they're like, oh, now they're addicted to the sport. Now they want to go get a dog that's more suitable for the sport in that
Yeah.
way. So I think it's a way of kind of getting people in and growing it that way.
I think IGP really needed to do something drastic to get more members because I don't think a lot of new people, but I feel like there were definitely other ways to do that without taking away stick hits. Yeah, I don't know. That I was I was
Yeah,
I was really unhappy about that. And obviously I don't compete. I mean, I don't compete in IGP technically right now. I have a young puppy. My goal is to do that with her. But obviously, as a shepherd person, I follow IGP very closely. I still love the sport. It's just not my main one. But I did not think that that was, I don't think it is productive for the sport or the breed.
No, and I think it came down mostly from like the FCI Commission as kind of a way to appease like the animal rights people in Europe.
Yeah.
Most people don't know about it, but like the AR people in Europe are horrific when you go to like these competitions. So even like in Germany this year for the WSV, like if your car isn't locked, like AR people, and they've done it before, where they'll go and just let dogs out of kennels, and they'll
What?
just let them, yeah, they'll just let them loose because they're like, well, dogs shouldn't be kenneled. They shouldn't do this. They shouldn't be
Oh
made to.
my gosh.
There was, I think it was the German Seeger show where it was pretty hot. I think it was like 80, 85 degrees. So it was like a 15-minute walk to and from the venue, and they had police and a lot of AR people in that area, and they were kind of patrolling the parking lot and like had those infrared thermometers to see like what the temperature of the car inside the car or the trailer or whatever was. These owners would have to go back and forth from the venue to check on their dogs every like 30 or 45 minutes or something like that, just to monitor them, make sure that they were watered, they were cool and everything. Like it was a big thing that they made them do. A lot of times what they would do is they would have like their significant other sit at the car and watch for, a couple hours and just monitor them and make sure everything's okay. And then they trade places. And then, the husband would be at the car and then he'd go watch the show. And then the wife would sit at the car and stuff
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh. That completely defeats the whole purpose of going to the show. That's I've never heard of that. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like people are honestly crazy. And the worst part of it too is like at its base level, they're just trying to look out for dogs. Like it didn't the reason why they're looking out for dogs and animal rights stuff like that is because they care about the welfare and well-being of dogs. But if they just spent 5 minutes to maybe educate themselves, they wouldn't be there. So yeah, I know
No.
it's pretty bad overseas in with a variety of different issues with animal rights stuff. I just wish people would educate them. He's such a good boy. I love dogs that are so strong on the field and also really just good in the house. I think that's obviously what shepherds should be, but not all of them are like that.
No, and honestly, like it took a while for him to kind of be chill in the house because he was 2 years old and like, oh my God, this is a great adventure. We're going everywhere. This is something new. And now as I've just done it and been like, you just have to chill. And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, okay. I think he's maybe one of the more chill dogs in our house. I'm sure Cassandra will tell me if I'm wrong or not, but in my opinion, he's one of our more chill dogs.
So, what is the most personal dogs that you guys have had? And then what would be like your limit to how many you would be willing to have?
The most we've had was four in a way. Right now we have three. The fourth one was that female that my dad wants to breed to Bola.
Okay.
He sent her to us just for BH and IGP1. So that was all last year. We had four dogs, and honestly, it was pretty easy in my opinion. Like a lot of people say there's a difference between three and four dogs. Like it's so much extra work. I didn't think there was that much extra work. I think there's a big step up from two to three, but three to four I didn't find that much. Honestly, I kind of like to have one dog at a time, at least one that I'm competing with and doing everything. Once Bola's retired, then I'll start my search and looking into things and doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah, just because I can't, I'm not the type of person to where I can split my time. Like I have to be all in all the time with one thing. And I want that to be Bola at least for this year and next year because again, probably going to be his last 2 years competing.
Yeah.
By the time the worlds roll around in 25, he'll be like 7.5. So yeah, it's probably about time to like maybe think about retiring or actually retire him. Just depends on how he holds up. If he's, a little bit sore and too much, like it takes too much to like recover him after this year, then it'll be this year. Like he'll tell me when he's ready to retire, and it might come to a point where I'm like, yeah, you're not the same dog that you were. Like you're struggling to do this, you're struggling to do that a little bit more. Like it's just time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never retired a sport dog because like I said mine are all young, but I can't imagine how bittersweet because it's like okay, you did your time, but at the same time that's your teammate. And talking about getting a new puppy, I know you're not there yet, but is there a specific lineage or a specific dog you're looking to get a puppy out of, or that's just something that you'll look at once the time gets there?
I'll kind of look at it when the time gets there. I've had my eye on a few different ones. I have a kennel in mind that I want to go with. Not 100% sure if the timing will line up with that specific dog or what the timing will be. If it happens, cool. If it doesn't, also cool. Like I have friends in Europe, so I can find something that's not adequate, but up to my standard of what things I want. I might even go with a young dog, like a year-old dog that's kind of started, just because I don't want to form this bond with an 8-week-old puppy or 10-week-old puppy, train it for a year and be like, oh yeah, this dog is awesome. I love this dog. It shows everything that I want and more. Like, this is phenomenal. And then it fails x-rays, right?
Yeah.
So I've even considered going the adult route again. Like, I bought Bolo when he was 16 months. Like, yeah, it kind of fell into my lap that way. And there was a lot of things I had to redo and train and get him right with. But I kind of like doing that because I know the health is already done.
Yeah, yeah, I completely get that. How old would you wash a puppy if they weren't turning out into what you wanted?
I would do it. I've done it probably around 8 months old, 8, 9 months old. It was a dog that it was the first dog I ever imported out of the Czech Republic, showing great potential, awesome. 6 months hit, it's kind of plateaued a little bit, and then 7 months it shot up again, and it was awesome. It was great. I was loving training this dog. It was fun. And then at 8 months, right around 7.5, 8 months ish, it just completely plateaued. And for 2 months, it plateaued. And I was just like, what the actual? Like, I spent good money on this dog, like importing it, doing all this thing, all this time and effort. And I was like, yeah, I just can't.
Yeah.
It's not like you were showing so much potential, and I just have to get rid of you, unfortunately. It's actually a really funny story. So I sold him to a club member of mine at my parents' club. And then I started doing the helper work on the dog because the lady needed to know like what I was doing and the handling and doing all these things. So I was just doing the helper work out there helping her. So then getting the dog ready for IGP1, I was like, wow, this dog is actually like really coming along. Like he's really biting nice and everything. I was really kind of kicking myself in the ass for selling it. And then the dog goes and does IGP1 and gets 100 points. And I'm just like, yep. That's awesome. That's the dog I sold. That's great. That was going to be my dog, but here we are now. I'm also a big believer that, everything happens for a reason. Like, if I
Yeah.
had that dog, I would have never ended up with Bola. I never would have had the success that I've had in the sport. Bola's been a huge driving force behind all of that, too.
Yeah, I agree that everything happens for a reason. So we answered this, well, you answered this before I started recording, but this is something that someone asked, so I'm just going to ask it again. Are you a professional pet dog trainer, or do you just do working dogs / sport dog?
I just do working dogs. I just do sport dogs. I've done pet dog stuff in the past. That's why I stick to working dogs now.
As a pet dog trainer, I feel that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw my story, the golden retriever that I have right now. Did you see that video?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
There's actually a golden that I do protection with out in like the Toronto area. Does protection, does like IGP protection, has a beautiful hold and bark, has a great grip. I was like, I can never take the dog seriously because I'm like, this
Because
is a
it's a
golden.
golden.
I'm like, this is a golden doing protection. Every time I'm working it, I'm laughing, I'm smiling. I'm like, I cannot take anything that is going on right now seriously.
Well, some of them, I saw this border collie actually that came to one of my seminars, and this dog had like the most insane aggression. I was just like, whoa, you're a border collie. You're not supposed to be like that relaxed.
Yeah, yeah. There's another girl that I've been helping recently. She has a GSP out in Victoria, and same thing. I'm like, what the is going on right now?
You could be out hunting.
This dog should be like hunting, not hunting me.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
the prey, right? Like this is.
This was a specific question that someone asked. What is your dumbbell process?
So I've changed it recently, thanks to Mia Skokster. Shout out Mia. Those who don't know Mia, she's a two-time IGP world champion at the FMBB, which is a Malinois only world championship. She's Finnish. She's amazing. She has a really great way of explaining things. It's all about being calm and having the dog take the dumbbell calm and whatever, the dowel, the dumbbell, whatever. But also kind of doing some classical conditioning things where certain body movements and noises that you'll make raises the expectation for the ball. So naturally, because they are such high prey-driven dogs at some point. After you condition it so many times, all of a sudden the mouth will start to close on the dumbbell. So instead of it just sitting there like that and their dog's mouth is just open, you can make a noise like breathing in, like, and then all of a sudden you'll see the dog's mouth go like this and tighten around the dumbbell and be calm because the expectation is that the ball is coming, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then you just slowly fade away for trial and do all of that.
I like that. I like that approach. I've seen people also just slowly start to reach into their shirt or something for the ball, and then the dog goes into prey. So naturally, they'll just become more calm in that way too.
Yeah, it's the same thing and it's the same kind of concept, except she just uses her voice and things that you can kind of get away with in IGP. The thing with IGP is I always tell people it's not about who has the best training and the best dog, it's about who can get away with the best cheating and what cues can you give more subtly than the next person.
Yeah, I know when it was like mask season and we were in the prime of COVID, I know that every competitor was having the time of their lives.
Oh, I
Um,
know.
because I actually competed with my dog with her for her BH during that. And so did my mentor. And yeah, I was trying to hype her up a little bit, not gonna lie.
Oh yeah. Like even I think I did it at the Universal last year. Like you can see like when Bola comes front with the dumbbell, you just see my shoulders ever so slightly go like this because I would always breathe in and do my shoulders like that, like Mia would do. So every time he comes front, it's just a little bit like this body movement, and I'm like, Judge didn't notice. We're good. We're still champions. We still win.
when I'm when I'm the photographer for a trial or I'm just on the sidelines, which on most of them I'm just on the sidelines watching, you definitely see some people get away with some things and you're just like, you didn't see that? Are we watching the same
Oh
thing?
yeah, it's the same thing in IGP. Like I have stories throughout the years of all these types of people and different handlers doing things and protection or even obedience of just like getting away with things. And I'm like, Judge didn't see it. He was writing in the book.
Oh well.
Can't do anything about it. Like, yeah, kudos to you. You got to.
So, what are your tips on finding a club, and what can someone expect? What resources do you think would be good for someone to know that's looking to join IGP, looking for a club, green and red flags? Give me your 411 on that.
I think the biggest thing is for green flags, at least for joining a club, is one that you gel with and one that you like the training system with. I know it's kind of an tale as old as time kind of thing. It's kind of a cliche, but it really does make a difference when you have a group of people that you can sit around with, make jokes, be comfortable with, almost like your friends just training together. That's a lot of just like how we are with Inferno. Like it's just a bunch of friends. Like we'll sit there and make jokes in training and we'll laugh and have a good time. We all kind of stick to the same training method and training style. Like we've incorporated a lot of different things since we started, but everything all kind of gels within the same system. So even just finding something that people can get behind in terms of like the training. Yeah, numbers are great and they show a lot of things, but is the training really that high quality or did you get an easy judge? Or was it actually like a good performance? Was it actually, 96 points? Was it actually 98 points? Um, or was the training there to do it? Also, like, I think a big one with us as well, like, I'm the training director for Inferno and the training helper. I don't stop people from doing workshops outside of training with me or whatever. Like if I know my friend Mike Sweeney, he's coming into the city soon. If people want to go work with him, I really don't care. Like I trust Mike. Mike and I are good friends. Like don't care. Or if they want to go to Vancouver because some other big time helper and competitor is going out there and they just want to see what's going on. Yeah, cool. Like have at her. I don't care. Like do what you want. A couple of years ago, Martin Peja, he's a big IGP guy from the Czech Republic, was in the city of Calgary, and a lot of people went to go check him out. And I was like, yeah, cool. Like the whole thing is like, go check it out, see what they're doing, bring something back. Just don't sit there and watch and audit and be like, yeah, nothing was good. Bring something back, something that could be useful for some dog at some point, whether it's your current dog or, you know, Joe Schmo, who just joined the club, has this issue with his dog that maybe this method is going to work. I think the big red flag for me is like when clubs only like don't expand or they bring in the same people all the time, right? When you see like they bring in the same helpers or they bring in the same obedience people all the time. They're not really expanding their toolbox. They're not gaining knowledge and they kind of stay within themselves. I think another one is they just promote like themselves. We at Inferno are pretty much like, you're more than welcome to come hang out, see if this is what you want to do. If not, no hard feelings. Like, we'll see you around. We're still going to be nice to you. We're still going to smile. We're not going to talk any crap about you behind your back. We're not going to say anything. We'll just be over here doing our own thing. I think those are the big ones.
I've never understood why people will have the same 1 to 2 people out for a seminar like 30 times. I'm just like, what have they taught you the fifth time that you didn't learn the first time? And like maybe 2 seminars, maybe a maximum of 3 if like you're going over different things. But
Yeah,
I've noticed that a lot actually, and I've always thought that that was really weird. So I think it's interesting that you brought that up.
yeah. Like we've um, ever since we've kind of been established and been able to get a little bit of cash flow going for the club, we're big on bringing in people for doing these types of seminars. Like we brought my dad in for tracking. We've brought in a guy from the Czech Republic who's renowned for being like one of the best long bite and escape bite teaching helpers. We brought in Mia Skogster for obedience. We brought in Marcos Ferre before he won the Worlds last year. We brought him in like end of June to just train with him, and we're gonna have. He's been the only one so far that we're going to have back, just because in those 3 days there wasn't a lot of like there was more that we could learn kind of thing from him.
Yeah.
And he's willing to do tracking obedience protection with us. So I think having that insight from someone like him is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always something that we could learn from a different trainer, a different helper, a different decoy.
Yeah,
It's always important that not only are the members of the club continuing to evolve, but that the people in charge, that the training directors are also setting that example that, I still want to learn and grow too. Even if you're really well established and really knowledgeable in one area, none of us ever know it all.
yeah.
Even if we're not learning a ton of new things, especially as the years go on, I'm sure that there could be something, even if it's
For
something
sure.
really small. So this is the last. What has your
Do it.
experience been training with your significant other, and what tips do you have for other people to potentially avoid conflict there?
So training, oh no, I can't do that. That's bad. So training with my significant other it definitely has its challenges, uh, but it has a lot of advantages as well. Like, no, nope, great success. Yeah, so training with your significant other has its challenges, but it has a lot of reward to it, right? Um, Sometimes there's lots of arguments that can happen on or off the field. My biggest
Oh.
takeaway is to try to leave it at the field. Like, don't take that stuff home with you because it's just going to get 10 times worse when you get home. There's actually a phrase that a friend of mine, oh, probably a lot of people know him, Marco Cosconsalo from
Mhm.
Canamo. He coined this term called Schützensex. And what it is when a couple argues on the field training together. That's simply all it is.
Oh, I thought you were going to keep going.
Nope, that's simply all it is. It's just two guy girl arguing on the field. That's Schützensex.
That's
Like
so
that's
funny.
all it. That's all it is. Yeah, it again has its advantages, has its disadvantages because sometimes you can say things in the heat of the moment, or you're trial prepping, so your nerves are going a little bit more. Sometimes you can say things that you don't necessarily mean, or you say them in a way that normally would be taken in a different context, but because you're a little bit stressed, you say them with a little bit more like anger or angst, or you're a little bit more upset by it. At the end of the day, though, I would not want to train with anyone else. Like Cass is my main spotter in obedience. She gives me ideas and tracking that may be something I've missed, or doing prep work. Like when I'm gone traveling, doing training helper work and stuff like that. Like if I need Bola to go on a treadmill or any work done, like she's more than willing to do that kind of stuff for me because I do a lot of my own helper work. She's my main handler in obedience as well. Also because Bola lives with her and trusts her and knows everything like that way. But again, it can be challenging, especially when you're getting ready for world championships. Like I was getting ready last year for the Universal, and then a couple months later, Cass was getting ready with Asia for the FCI World Championship. So there was a couple times where we would butt heads a little bit, or we would just be like, all right, what do you need? What do you want? Tell me exactly what you're looking for. I will do exactly what you're asking. You do whatever you need to, kind
Yeah.
of thing. Or even just, it's nice when I can go to training and be like, I'm really struggling with this dog in this way and thinking about this. And she's like, oh, have you thought about this? Or have you tried this? Or like anything like that. Or even just problem solving together kind of thing. Like honestly, that's a lot of our time. Like we'll sit down, watch a movie, hang out, do all that kind of stuff. We'll play video games together because that's like another hobby we do. But then, if I'm like, hey, I'm having this issue with this dog, or she's like, I'm like, this dog is really nice. This stuff is going on. She's like, oh, that's cool. Like, what's his pedigree? Like, what's he doing? Like, what's all this kind of stuff. So having that shared interest in the dog sport is definitely great. But yeah, it definitely has its challenges.
Yeah. Did you guys meet through dog sport or did you know each other outside of it?
No, we met through dog sport. So it's actually kind of funny. I was recently single in like early 20 and I was scrolling through Facebook and you know how it'll pop up like the people you may know section?
Yeah.
She popped up and we had, I don't know, something like 300, 400 mutual friends. And I was like,
So you
oh,
slid
that's,
into her DMs.
yeah. So I sent her a friend request and then a couple months went by and I slid into her DMs. And then we would kind of go off and on for a few months, like, talk for a couple, like maybe an hour or two, and I was like, nothing's really going to come of this. And then one day I sent her a message, just being like, oh, hey, like, what's up? How you doing? Kind of thing, just being nice. And
Just being nice.
yeah, we just never stopped talking from that point on.
And now you're here.
And now we're here. We've been together, what? Oh, gosh, she's going to kill me. 5 years. We were together in December, and then married together 4 years now.
Oh, that's awesome. So she was already competing at the time with her dog, and then obviously, you were born into it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think obviously, so this is where I said I wanted to put my input because my husband and I obviously both compete in PSA. He's my decoy. I think there's definitely pros and cons, like you said. I would say in the beginning, it's a lot harder to maybe find that, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, to find where everything works well. I think it could be harder in the beginning to get your flow, especially when you have two really passionate people. Well, I guess so for my husband, we were together before any dogs. We met in college and then we got married like less than a year after that. And we've been married for, it's going to be 8 years this year. So we already obviously were together before dogs and I was more into dogs than he was. So I would say in the beginning it was a lot easier because there was just no question about it. I knew everything in terms of what we were doing. Like I knew what I was doing. I was already a trainer. So there wasn't really much room left for an argument because he was just getting into it. So he didn't know about anything. So
Yeah.
as he was learning and growing and not only being a decoy, but also being a trainer and a handler slash competitor himself, that's when things started to kind of get cloudy for a bit because it's like he's trying to tell me what to do and I'm like, you only know what to do because I taught you, type of a thing. So there's definitely been moments like that. And there was definitely some arguments on the field, like you've said, and it just kind of makes it awkward for your club members because they're like, "Oh, this
It
is
doesn't. It does
this,
indeed.
this is a little bit weird." But I think once you get into a rhythm and once you guys both kind of try to stay in your lane, like unless you're asking for help, and especially I think the way that you're delivering it can have a big impact on how it's received.
Oh, yeah.
um, but I definitely think there's a lot of couples that do dog sport together, and I'm sure that everyone probably feels the same way that we do. And at the end of the day, I mean, I agree. I couldn't ask for a better training partner. He is an incredible trainer and decoy, and I'm really lucky and grateful that he decided to come on this journey with me because if he wasn't as into it as he is, we wouldn't be on this podcast right now. Um,
Yeah.
so it definitely, I would say way more good than the bad. The bad is very small scale compared to the big picture.
It was definitely a challenge for me too at first because when I first moved here, I was in the sport for God, it's been 4 years now. So I was 25, turning 26. So I was in the sport for that long and competing and going to national events and doing all this stuff. And then in comes Cassandra, who like rocks my world in terms of like spotting and doing all this stuff. And at first, it was definitely like there was quite a few arguments when we first started training together when I moved here. But then as we kind of got into it, we found that rhythm, that groove and everything. And honestly, it sounds kind of similar. I kind of checked my ego a little bit at the door and I was like, okay, she's not actually doing this to do anything like it's actually beneficial. Like I have
Yeah.
to sit here and actually do what she's asking because it's going to be better for me and for Bola later on.
Yeah, I think it could just be hard for anyone to take advice from their significant other, especially when it's in their area of expertise. You're just like, if someone else, maybe in the club or that was around at the time, said that thing, you'd be like, oh, okay, like, sure, let me try that. But it's like, if your significant other says it, you're just like, Fuck off. Leave me
you're like,
alone.
what?
There's been
Ew,
times where I
no,
told my
no.
husband, like, I'm never training with you again. It's only happened like once or twice, and it's been a long time, but there's definitely moments where I'm just like, yep, you can figure it out by yourself.
Yeah, we've definitely had those arguments as well. I think every couple goes through that at least once
Yeah.
or twice. And if you haven't, then you're lying.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this episode with me. And I hope that someone's learned something. You're an awesome trainer and helper and competitor. So it was really awesome having you on here. Thank you, everyone, for joining the podcast. And we hope you have a good day.
Bye.